Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the Extra Mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now, your host, Jackson Mummy, owner of the Celebration Bar Review.
Well, hey everybody, welcome to episode 182 of the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. This is Jackson Mummy, your host, and I'm really glad you're with us. Hope things are going well for you. We are now getting into just a little more than 30 days until the upcoming February 2018 bar exam. So if you're preparing for that test, I know that you are right in it, in the thick of it right now, and I want to encourage you to keep your head up and keep working. You're almost there. I also know that many of you are starting to think about the July 2018 exam, and so we're glad you're with us as well. If this is your first time with us on the podcast, we want to welcome you. We're glad that you found us. We appreciate that. We come out every Wednesday with an episode talking about all things bar exam related. And we've been doing this for a few years now. If you'd like to go back and check out our earlier episodes, you can do that really easily just by going to our website at celebrationbarreview.com. There is a tab at the top for podcasts. Just click on that and you will find all the episodes and the show notes going back. Now, we do these episodes in both audio and video format. If you'd like to watch the video of today's episode, you can do that by going to celebrationbarreview.com/182. That's 182. If you'd like to listen, you can do that with Apple iTunes or with Spotify or iHeartRadio, pretty much any place that you get your podcasts. And so however you are checking this out, we're glad that you're here and appreciate it. And really appreciate that so many of you share this podcast with your friends and your colleagues. It's how the podcast has grown, and we're very appreciative. I got a nice note the other day. Somebody had seen our video podcast and said, "I love you." I'm like, okay, good. That's very much appreciated. I love all of you as well. So we are currently in the midst of a 4-part series on bar exam study tools. And today we're going to look at the fourth of our tools, which we are going to just call meditation. And I think you're going to find it really interesting. We're going to talk about meditation, how it works, how we incorporate it into the bar exam study, the specific tool that we use and recommend for people, and why we think it's so important. So I hope you'll stick around for that. Before I jump into that message, I do want to share with you that we have a free webinar titled How to Make the Next Bar Exam Your Last Bar Exam. This is the powerful, proven way to pass. And we offer this webinar twice a week on Thursday and Monday nights at 7 p.m. So coming up, if you're just listening to this episode as it's released, on Thursday, January 26th, and on Monday, January 29th, we will be offering the podcast live and free at 7 p.m. Eastern. That's 4 p.m. Pacific time. In order to attend the webinar, you do need to sign up, and you can do that here on the video page by just scrolling down to the bottom of the page. And if you're listening to the webinar, there is a place in the show notes where you can register, or you can go to celebrationbarreview.com. Right at the top of the page, there's a button. You can just press that button and schedule the time that works for you. We also offer the same webinar in an on-demand version. Of course, this doesn't allow us to interact with you with questions and answers, but it's the same content, the same examples, the same detail, and it's a great opportunity to learn how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. If you want the on-demand version, just click that button. You can schedule it at your own time or right away just to sit down and watch it. So no matter how you choose to get this information, we do hope you'll check it out. We've been doing this for a long time. It's a wildly popular webinar, and it's changed a lot of lives. So I encourage you to participate and join us and find out what all the excitement is about. All right, well, with those ideas in mind, I want to jump to today's message talking about meditation. Now, just to bring everybody up to speed, going back a couple of episodes, I think it would have been episode 179, we started talking about the first of our tools, which was photo reading. And then in episode 180, we talked about a second of our tools, which was mind maps. I probably got that reversed, but in any event, those two things I think we've got for sure. And then in the last episode, 181, we talked about paraliminal recordings, these audio recordings that you listen to that help you deal with specific targeted areas of concern or blockages that you might have. Now, when I was talking about paraliminal recordings, which are done by a company called Learning Strategies, I mentioned that as part of their approach to these paraliminals, they use something called a binaural beat technology from a company called Centerpointe Research Institute. Centerpointe Research has been around for a very long time. It's headed by a man by the name of Bill Harris. Bill kindly agreed to do a podcast, a couple of episodes with me. We'll link to those in the show notes, and they're great interviews, I think, for you to kind of get the insight of a guy who's just one of the great thought leaders when it comes to meditation in the world. In any event, he created many years ago a system of electronically producing sound waves at different sound frequencies in the left and right ear. When he did that, it created something called a binaural beat. And the effect of the binaural beats, the different sound frequencies in each hemisphere of the brain, caused an interesting reaction. Scientists studying this found that what the brain did was it tried to equalize the different frequencies. And in order to equalize those frequencies, the brain literally created new synaptic connections, new neural pathways. Well, with the advent of functional MRIs, it was possible to measure what these new neural pathways looked like and then to compare them to traditional meditation practices, monks, spiritual guidance leaders, people who are really good at meditation, the traditional way we think of meditation, sitting, chanting, breathing, all of those things. And when we looked at the brain of someone in traditional meditation and we compared it to what was happening with this more electronic, advanced form of meditation, there was virtually no difference. Someone who had never been in meditation before could achieve the same state as someone who had been meditating for decades, and it was really extraordinary. Well, with that discovery and development, Bill and the Centerpointe Research Institute folks created a product that they called Holosync. We're going to talk about Holosync. It's the program we recommend and that we use for our own bar students. But the Holosync technology actually is the underpinning of the paraliminals we talked about in episode 181. So if you've been using any of the paraliminals or you've been using some of the fast finish recordings in Learning Strategies PhotoReading course, you've already been exposed to this binaural beat. It's not a subliminal message. There's nothing sneaky or tricky going on. It's just literally learning to meditate. But I want to back up a little bit and just talk about the general purposes of meditation and then talk about how difficult or easy it is and why we would use it for the bar exam. And I think those are the things that you probably want to know at this point. To begin with, the question of why should you meditate, I think is a really profound question. Meditation has obviously been recognized among virtually every spiritual discipline for eons, for decades and centuries now. There's something about quiet time, about solitude, about contemplation that's good for the soul. And I don't know anyone that doesn't benefit from having a little bit of that quiet time, whether they're meditating or they're praying or they're perhaps journaling or just taking a walk in nature, doing something that allows you to get outside yourself for a bit of time. And so when I talk about meditation, I'm talking about it in the broadest sense. I am not talking specifically about sitting cross-legged on the floor with your hands up and breathing and chanting. That is a form of meditation, but it is by no means the only way of meditating. The purpose of meditation, no matter how you do it, is to raise your internal consciousness, your awareness. Now, why is that important? Well, if you think about it, unless someone is psychotic, we don't do things intentionally to hurt ourselves. And yet we all do things that end up hurting ourselves, don't we? We seem to make decisions, sometimes more often than not, that just seem really not smart and really calculated to cause a problem. And we say, oh, what was I thinking? Well, the answer was you weren't thinking, you were just acting, you were doing. You weren't aware of what you were doing. Meditation, I think, to me at least, and as I've read about it from experts, is a process of becoming aware of the choices that you have in front of you. It's simply having a greater awareness of where you are and what's going on around you. Some people call this mindfulness. And I think mindfulness is an interesting word. It's a way to describe the process. If you're mindful of something, you know that there are consequences. If I study today, I'm mindful of what will happen. If I don't study today, I'm mindful of what may happen. But when I don't think about it at all and it just occurs or doesn't occur, then I really feel out of control. I don't feel like I have any say in what's going on in my life. And often what happens is that if we don't take time out to actually think about what we're doing, to become aware of what we're doing, to become mindful of what we're doing, we simply drift through our daily existence. And many of us have had that experience, sometimes for days, weeks, sometimes years, sometimes decades, perhaps an entire lifetime, in which we didn't really stop to think, what am I doing? What's happening here? Am I repeating patterns of behavior that just go over and over and over again? Now, this kind of programmatic thinking that sometimes occurs, we see in bar students. We see people that repeat and fail the exam and repeat and fail and repeat and fail and repeat and fail. And we ask, why are you doing that? And they don't really have a good answer. They just know that they show up, they take the exam, and they fail. Nothing really changes. They're not aware until we point it out that they've been doing the same thing and expecting a different result. There are also people who study and take the bar exam who expect to fail. We've talked about that in other places and in other episodes of these podcasts, but the obvious reality is that if you expect to fail, it's very hard to be successful. No good athlete goes into a competition saying, I'm going to get clobbered here. They may say, I don't have a great chance, but at least they've got some idea of the awareness of where they are and the possibility of success. Meditation is a great way for you to change the way you're thinking, to program your thinking, because you make a choice to do so. When used in combination with the paraliminals act like blockers. They take out the things that tell you what you can't do. I'm anxious, or I'm afraid, or I can't sleep, or I'm not good at focus or concentration, or I won't let go of the past, whatever it might be. Those are all really powerful messages to give to your non-conscious brain. But at the same time, you also have to be aware enough to know that you need that. So how do you know you need the paraliminal recording? Well, meditation is a great way to do that. Meditation allows us to take stock of where we are. One of the really great introductions to meditation, I think, comes from Jack Canfield. He's the man that helped co-author the Chicken Soup for the Soul books, which I think are probably among, if not the best-selling books in the history of self-help. What Jack Canfield talks about is the value of sort of summarizing your day with a short meditation at the end of your day to just kind of summarize and reflect on what's happened during the day, what went well, what you might want to redo if you could have, and what didn't go so well that wasn't up to you, and just letting go of it. And he then says you tell your non-conscious brain, your inner mind, what you want during the night, what you're looking for, what problems you'd like to resolve and work on. And of course there are paraliminals and tools to help with that as well. But then he says in the morning when you wake up, meditate again. Contemplate what the day is going to be like, what you want to achieve, what you're looking to accomplish, what your goals and objectives are. By bookending what you do at night and then again in the morning, by bookending that dream period or that sleep period, you make your sleep much more powerful, and you give yourself a focus to start your day and then an ability to evaluate at the end of the day. Now, does this meditation have to be long? No, absolutely not. There are people that meditate very effectively in 5 minutes or less. Some people will meditate for longer periods of time. The yogis will meditate for hours at a time. I don't think that that's necessary for our purposes on the bar exam. I would recommend for most people a half an hour of meditation on a daily basis. And I'm going to tell you how that works with Holosync in a moment. But the point I want to make is that no matter how you choose to meditate, whether it's in prayer, or it's in quietude, or it's in just being out in nature and walking, or it's doing something like Holosync or meditating, all of those forms allow you that time to recapture yourself, to recenter yourself, to become aware of what you're doing and mindful about the choices in front of you. Now, I think meditation falls into that kind of category when it comes to studying for the bar. If you can set your objectives for study each day and know what you want to achieve and understand that some subjects may be harder for you than others and that there's big challenges as you come up on certain things, it takes a lot of the edge off as you're studying. I find students that meditate are easier to work with, they make bigger gains, and they are more self-aware than the ones that don't. Typically, when someone's not meditating, they become delusional about some things. Not always, and not as a result of not meditating, but I can almost guarantee when someone's delusional about the quality of their writing or their chances of success on the bar, it's because they've spent no time in mindfulness or in awareness or in meditation. So I think as you're studying, you want to meditate. It should be part of your daily routine. In our course, we will recommend, as I say, 30 minutes of meditation a day. Why? Because we find that it makes the rest of the study that much more effective. It's time well spent. So if you're studying for an upcoming bar exam, I think you ought to meditate. That's the first thing. The second thing I'd say about why you should meditate is on the exam itself. You should be in a meditative state, certainly on the days of the exam. Now, this might mean you have to get up a bit earlier on the day of the exam, and that's okay. You're going to be anxious and up anyway. What a great way to start the test day, though, by just being in a quiet, contemplative point where you can think about all the work you've done, everything that you've put into this effort, what it's going to be like when you pass the bar, the way it feels, the way that it sounds, the way it looks, what you're going to be able to do, the clients you're going to be able to work with, the changes in your life, why the next bar exam will be your last bar exam. All of those things are really important to focus on before you ever leave your hotel or home and go to the test center. I highly, highly recommend meditation on the day of the exam. But one of the other things that happens is that after the first day of the test, there's a lot of what we call post-mortem behavior. People trying to dissect the exam or ask about it or question whether or not they got all the issues, whatever that means, or just hearing people talking in the room and being concerned. Well, obviously, once the reports are sent in, once the test sheets are given in, that part of the test is over and you got to let go of it. Now, the great Paraliminal letting go is a good one to use that night. But beyond that, I think meditating on the end of the day of day one of the bar exam is a perfect opportunity to just be aware. This is what I did. Here's how it went. I don't know the results yet, but I'm aware that I have done my best, and letting go of that and preparing for a good solid night's sleep, a lot of rest, not waking, but really deep, restful sleep. And I'm going to wake up the next morning for the next day of the test and meditate to bookend that morning and start off the next day of the test. Really powerful, and I love it when I hear students telling me that they're meditating just that way during the bar exam itself. Now, could you be in a meditative state while you're taking the exam? Well, the answer is yes. And we've talked about that with our students in a couple of different ways. I'm not going to go into depth here in the podcast. I'm simply going to say that there are ways to bring you to a restful, what we call a drop-in state when you're taking the exam, so that you're clear-eyed, you're focused, you're concentrating, you've got really absolute focus and concentration for the test, and you're not distracted by the drama of the exam. I think that's a huge advantage. I see that work for our students over and over again, and I think it's something you should definitely consider. So if you're in our course, we've been talking about it. If you're not in our course, why aren't you? You should be. But in any event, it's something you could explore on your own for sure. All right, so that's why I think you should meditate. Now, there are other benefits that I'm sure you've heard about. It helps with heart rates. It helps with blood pressure. It helps with cholesterol. It helps so many things. It helps mental health. I mean, there's no doubt meditation is, on balance, way better for you than almost anything else you can do. So definitely worth doing. But a lot of people don't meditate. I would say the vast majority of bar takers don't meditate. And I suppose the question or the reason might be that they think it's really hard to do it. And it takes too long, and we're busy, and I'm studying, and I've got too much to do, and it sounds kind of woo-woo, and, why do I want to meditate? That's only for, Zen yogis, right? Well, no. The truth is that a lot of us meditate in a lot of ways. If you go to hot yoga, you're doing some meditation. If you're doing Pilates, which I have done, there's some meditation in that. There's meditation in so many things that we do, but we're not conscious of it. We're not aware of it necessarily, and so we tend to think it's not meditation. How hard is it? Well, it's as hard as you choose to make it. If you want to learn traditional meditation, it will take you years and years and years to achieve a deep meditative state. I think for many people, that's the great barrier, is that they think, I just don't think I could sit there and concentrate just on my breathing and clear my mind, what we call monkey brain. As soon as I try to think of nothing, I think of everything. You've probably had that experience. And it's frustrating and it's discouraging. And so people try to meditate and then they give up. Or they try to go into those periods of quiet contemplation, and again, they get monkey brain. They just can't do it. It's just too hard to keep that focus on nothing. Well, I think that was the idea when Bill was trying to create the Holosync audio program. It was his belief that if you tried to meditate, it would be hard, but if your brain meditated on its own, if it meditated you in effect, if the soundtracks could work to meditate you, that would be pretty easy. And so what he did was he created these binaural tones in the left and right ears, and he put them behind nicely sounding water chimes and water sounds and waterfalls and oceans and so on. And he did it in a progressively more sophisticated 3D sound technology. Now, I've been doing meditation for a long time with Bill, and I can tell you that the early versions of Holosync were nowhere near as sophisticated as they are today. Today, it is just lovely. It's just cool sound, and it doesn't seem to come from your left ear or your right ear. You put on headphones or earbuds, and there are even really inexpensive plug-in headphones that give you these great deep bass tones, which I love. But no matter what you do, you get the same effect. And the beautiful part of this is it's a digital MP3 recording, and it's in your permanent library. And so I put it on my phone, so it's portable. I can take it with me wherever I go. And there's a series of different recordings. The basic recording, Bill calls the dive. It's a 30-minute soundtrack. It's water chimes, very simple, and it's just lovely. It just kind of relaxes and chills you out. But here's the great part. It doesn't matter what you're thinking about. You can think about anything your monkey brain wants. Absolutely anything. You can be just totally jumping around, thinking about other stuff, and it's doing the work of meditation. I love that, man. That's perfect. You know, all I got to do is put it on, and it's meditating me, and I don't have to do anything. This is for me, all right? It is super, super easy. Now, as part of the Holosync program, there's a second 30-minute recording called Immersion. This is a slightly deeper set of tones that are designed to move your brain into deeper states of relaxation, and it just follows right after the dive. So you run the dive for 30 minutes, and if you want to go deeper, you take Immersion for another 30 minutes. It's a slightly different soundtrack so that you know you've changed from one to the other, and it's very restful, very relaxing, but again, you can be thinking about anything that you want to do. Now, I don't recommend driving cars or operating heavy equipment, but I've seen people use this when they're on the treadmill at the gym. I've seen people use it when they're just lounging around by the pool. I've seen people use it when they're in bed. Here's the cool part. You can use it while you're asleep. It'll work exactly the same way whether you're conscious or unconscious, whether you're paying attention or not paying attention. Why? Well, in one hemisphere, you've got one sound wave frequency, and in the other, a second. And again, your brain is trying to neutralize or equalize those two things, and it's creating the neural pathways. So it's doing the work for you, and that is absolutely amazing. And it works. Now, Holosync and Centerpointe have done a series of recordings besides dive and immersion. They have a recording in their basic package that's good for studying. There's one called Quietude and another called Oasis. One's good for creativity, one's good for studying. There are all kinds of recordings for all different kinds of needs, which I love, and some of them are longer and shorter than others. The point is, there's absolutely no harm to using them, and you can jump in at any point. What we recommend for our students is that they use the dive every day, and definitely for the first 2 weeks, that's all they do is just the dive, 30 minutes a day. If they want to go deeper, and most people do after a couple of weeks, we say add immersion. And you don't have to add immersion every day, but if you put it in, it's an hour of your time. If you do it as you go to sleep at night, which a lot of people do, it's absolutely wonderful. It's a great way to get a restful night's sleep. So, if you're doing your book ending that we were talking about, that Jack Canfield talks about, I just put on the dive soundtrack. And while that soundtrack is running as I'm lying down to go to bed at night, I do a mental recap of my day. And frankly, I fall asleep pretty quickly, counting my blessings, I guess, right? And in the morning, if I wake up and I want to continue that, I can go back to the dive in the morning and do that while I'm recapping and starting my next day. So there's a lot of different ways to use it. It's super easy. It doesn't require any practice, and most people see those benefits almost immediately when they use it. Now, I will say that one of the benefits and one of the ways that Centerpointe wants people to use this technology is consistently. And the reason is that you build up a consistent set of habits, you create these new neural pathways. What I find interesting from the bar standpoint is that these new neural pathways act like superhighways on the road with no cars on them. You're bringing all this new information into your brain, and it's got to go somewhere. And the problem is, for most people, their neural pathways are clogged. They're loaded up. There's way too much there. If you're using PhotoReading, you're bringing in a fire hose worth of information, and you're trying to put it through a very narrow pathway. That's hard to do. With meditation, there's all of a sudden a whole series of new pathways, and that new information will move there. When they do functional MRIs, they see those pathways light up when new information comes in, which means that our brains automatically reshift and move data around. And if there's an empty new neural pathway, that's where new information goes, and it starts to build up. Now, the thing that we know about synaptic responses and neural pathways is the more you use them, the stronger they become. So daily use creates a stronger pathway and a better response, a better ability to recapture that information as you move along. That's part of the reason that the Paraliminal recordings have one of the tracks always built in that they call a sleep learning track that is built on the basis of the Holosync technology. It's to help get that information into a brand new neural pathway and to bring it directly back to the non-conscious brain where it can be used. And so what Learning Strategy says is take that sleep learning track with the meditation background and put it on auto repeat. Turn it down to a nearly inaudible level and either put it under your pillow at night or maybe put in some earbuds, although you got to be careful so that you don't strangle yourself. But set it up in a way that it's just playing. It won't bother you. It won't keep you up. It won't wake you up. It'll just process all night long. It's a great way to use that particular tool. So I think this is the easiest way to meditate that I've ever seen. I also think it's probably one of the best products to use. Now, there are many, many meditation products on the field. Centerpointe was the first one to actually create the binaural beats technology, and I think that's given them a dramatic head start in the quality of their technology, the quality of their product, and the way that they operate, the efficacy of the product itself. I don't know all that much about all the many meditation programs that are out there. Some of them seem pretty good. Some of them seem a little sketchy to me. And so I think it's better to work with a company that's been around, tested, trusted, and that others use and other companies use as the ground basis of their meditation program. I will say that if you really like meditation, there are different levels. There are increasingly deeper levels that Holosync offers. As I say, I've been doing this for almost a decade now. I'm in a very deep level of meditation where I'm actually able to record my own soundtracks that do run subliminally in my own voice with the things that I want to put into them, with some coaching and guidance from the folks at Holosync so we know what to say. But they don't put anything into these soundtracks for you. So it is a completely subliminal free. It's just literally the meditation tone. So how hard is it? Not hard. How long does it take? Half an hour, maybe an hour, no more than that, and it's extremely effective. All right, well, the third thing and the last thing I want to talk about is how do you use meditation for the bar exam? I mean, that's our purposes. How do I improve my bar preparation, my studies, my exam writing, my essay writing, my MBE performance, and so on? Well, I think that the best way to use meditation is to set up a daily regimen. To use the meditation whenever you're feeling stressed or anxious, whenever you're becoming unaware of the way that you're behaving or acting, this programmatic behavior. If you're repeating taking the bar, you've come to the exam with a whole bag of rocks tied around your back, essentially. There are things that you believe about the test. Trying to break some of those, if you're in our course, when we talk about breaking that set of habits, that's hard to do. And meditation is incredibly valuable because it acts as an eye-opener. You can sort of look and say, I tried it this way, it didn't work. I tried it a lot of times this way maybe, and it didn't work. Maybe I need to do something different. Maybe I need to take better advantage of other skills that I have when it comes to studying for the bar. Those kinds of aha moments, those awakening moments, don't happen quite so easily without meditation. What I find is that when students are meditating, they're much more open to those kinds of moments of self-discovery and ability to change and do different things. So I definitely think you want to use meditation in your daily practice, particularly if you're running into a roadblock or a problem. I also think you should use daily meditation to just give yourself the opportunity to recenter. Again, whether it's the morning or the evening, or maybe it's the middle of the day for you, getting recentered, kind of finding your spot is really important. You can get whipped out of shape very easily in the bar. I didn't understand that lecture. I couldn't keep up with that reading. I did poorly on those practice questions. And suddenly we're feeling like we're less than, we're not successful, we're not good. And we hear all of the stories, probably from early childhood, about all the stupid, crazy things that we did. And we start to believe that stuff. Well, it's not true. but we listen to it, we take it in, and we act as though it's true. And our non-conscious brain says, well, okay, if that's what you want, that's what I'll give you. Well, meditation is a great opportunity for you to stop, change that dialogue, change that conversation, and say, is that really what I want? Is that really what I believe about myself? Is that really where I am? And I oftentimes will find that students that have been using Holosync and meditating will come back and say, I had the most interesting, breakthrough or moment or, just something coming into my brain. And I realized that what I've been doing just hasn't been the right thing for me. And here's what I need to do. I think when you take that approach, when you take the idea of, I just want to get recentered, I want to think about what's happening and what's going on in my life and in my study, and I'm feeling the stress and the pressure of the bar exam, well, now is an opportunity to let meditation bring all of that back to a better place, a better, more useful place for you. So what do we see about meditation? Well, I think we've seen that there's a good reason to meditate. It creates awareness and mindfulness. It's helpful in changing your programmatic thinking. You can use it when you study. You can use it on the day of the bar exam. It's a very practical tool. How hard is it? Not hard at all. If you use Holosync, it's very simple, very easy to use. You just plug it in, listen to it, and you're good to go. How much time does it take? Half hour, maybe an hour tops. It's totally up to you. When can you use it? Anytime you want. Morning, evening, wherever during the day that makes sense for you. And how do you use it for the bar exam? Well, you use it to keep your perspective, to stay centered, to stay grounded, to let it help create new ways of learning and thinking, new neural pathways that will help you grow and get better faster, learn more material faster and use it. You see, if you're using all the tools that we've been talking about in this 4-part series, if you're photo reading and you're mind mapping and you're using paraliminals, meditation is the big blanket that wraps it all up. When you meditate, you're just giving your brain permission to use all of those tools to their fullest capacity. How cool is that? What most of us do is we operate on very limited capacity. It's like having a Ferrari engine, and we go out and we put, instead of the Ferrari engine into our car, we put our lawnmower engine in. And we say, the car's not running very well. Yeah, you think? You've got this nice, beautiful engine. It's called your non-conscious brain. Use it. And when you use it, wow, the effects are dramatic and the improvement is extraordinary. And then that's when lives begin to change. So that's what we really want to see you doing. Do you still have to learn the law? Of course. Do you still have to study? Of course you do. But you know what? Most of you know the law. Most of you know what to do. Most of you know the material. You put in the time and the effort. It's not that you're stupid or lazy. I say this in our webinar all the time. What's keeping you from optimizing your study is all the barriers that you've allowed yourself to put up. Well, meditation is a great tool to get rid of those barriers, to knock them down, get rid of them, and throw them out. So if you haven't been meditating, I encourage you to do it. Now, you may have your own favorite meditation app or program, and that's certainly fine. But I do recommend to our students the Holosync program, and we offer that dive and immersion program along with Quietude and Oasis. So 4 recordings for a very reasonable price. And we'll put a link in our show notes so that you can check that out and find out more about it. I really encourage you to do it. If you haven't been meditating and you're taking the upcoming exam, you might say, was it too late? No, not at all. You have more than enough time. If you've got 14 days before the exam, that's enough time to build the habit and get, I think, the real benefits of meditation. But you'll notice the benefits almost immediately. The other thing I like about Holosync is that they have a series of people, or a group of people who are counselors who work with our bar students. Because often when you start meditating, it starts to unearth some stuff. You begin to realize, ooh, I've done some things that weren't so good for me. And when you do that, it's good to have somebody to talk to. And so Holosync makes that available as a free service. And it's been a great service. We've loved it. We've worked with them for years. And our students love this program and the support and service they get. So I hope you'll check out meditation in whatever form. We certainly encourage Holosync from Centerpointe Research. Think it's the best that's out there for our purposes on the bar. Well, that wraps up our series on bar exam tools. There's a lot of other things to talk about when it comes to how to study, and we're going to shift gears as we go into the next month or so. Leading up to the bar exam, we're going to talk about some of the challenges that people face as they get into that last month before the test, so I hope you'll stick around for that. Even if you're not taking the test in a month, pretty good information to have at the ready because it's going to happen to you, I promise, as you get closer. I just want to remind you again that we've got our free webinar coming up on Thursday and Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, how to make the next bar exam your last bar exam. We're going to talk about how people get in their way and how to get out of their way. We're going to show you what successful students did. We're going to give you lots of examples and lots of case studies. And I think you're going to find it really helpful. So I hope you'll join us for that. Make sure to register and secure your spot. And I hope everybody has a great study week. Hope things go well for you. Check out these tools and let us know what you think. It's always exciting to see people getting involved with all of these different tools. And I hope you've enjoyed this series. If you have, let me know. I'd love your feedback. And we will look forward to seeing you again next week along the Extra Mile. Bye-bye for now.
Thanks for listening to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at www.celebrationbarreview.com.